Hey guys, welcome to part 2 of the MongoDB socket.io chat application video, or videos I should say. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to build the client. We're going to build an HTML file that's able to connect to the server, and we'll be able to send chats and get the status back and all that. Now there's two very small errors in the server.js file that we created, so let me just show you those before we move on. So one, where we said client.onConnection here, this connects to socket.io, then we move on to do everything. We actually need to pass in socket right here, okay, because it's going to throw an error because it's not going to know what this is, you know, where we use socket.emit. So make sure that you put that in there. And then the second error is right here. I actually put 3 R's, okay? So if you've been following along, you probably noticed that a while ago. But if you did for some reason copy that, just go ahead and get rid of that extra R. All right, so now this has been fully tested. I know that the server side actually works. So what I'm going to do now is create an index.html file. This can actually be created anywhere because we're just going to connect to our external server. It's not really integrated. So what we're going to do is just create our basic HTML structure. I'm using Emmet, which is a Visual Studio Code plugin. It's also available for Atom and Sublime Text, but I can just do !tab and it's going to give me a basic HTML layout. Alright, so let's go ahead and change the title to Mongo Chat. I'm also going to use Bootstrap 4, so I'm going to just do a search for Bootstrap 4 CDN. We'll click this first link here and grab the CDN for the CSS file, which is this link right here. And we'll just go ahead and paste that in. Alright, and I'm just going to wrap this so you guys can see everything. Let's see, toggle word wrap. Alright, so there's the head area. Now what we're going to do is build out the UI, which is going to be very simple. Let's create a div with the class of container. We're also going to have a div with the class of row. Whoops. Okay, because we're going to use the grid system. And then our column div, we're going to say div class, we're going to do call md6, and that's going to put it into a 6-column div, but I want it to be pushed into the middle, so we're going to set an offset -md-3. Okay, and then for small screens, we're going to say call sm12, because we just want a single 12-column div on small screens so that it's responsive. Okay, and then in here, let's go ahead and put an h1, and I'm going to give it a class of text center, and then we'll just say Mongo Chat. All right, so let's go ahead and open up the index file. I'm just going to open it up on my file system. Okay, so it should look like that. Now we're also going to have the clear button in the heading, so let's go right here and put in a button. I'm going to give it a class of btn, also a class of btn danger, like that. And then I'm also going to give it an ID because we're going to need to grab onto that later. So let's give it an ID of clear, I guess. Okay. Now I do have the code from the MongoDB course in front of me, but I am changing up a few things to make it a little more, I guess, make the code a little bit better. So next thing we're going to need is the status div right below the h1. So we're going to have a div with the class of status, and that's going to be empty by default. And then under that, we're going to have a div with the ID of chat. Okay, and then this is where we're going to put our username input, the chat output, as well as the message input. So let's start off with the username input. Okay, so type text, and let's give this an ID of name, or I guess we'll give it an ID of username. And let's give it a Bootstrap class of form control. And we're going to give it a placeholder, and we'll just say enter name. All right, let's take a look at that. Oh, we forgot the text and the clear button. All right, so underneath, sorry about that, underneath the input, let's go ahead and put a div, and we're going to give it a class of card, whoops, which is a Bootstrap 4 class. We also want a div with the class of card block. Okay, and then let's see, we also want card block. That div is also going to have an ID of messages, because that's where we're going to output the messages. Let's put a line break too right above the card. And then right below the card, we'll put another line break, and then we're going to have our text area. Let's see, we don't need all this stuff. We do need an ID, and I'm just going to give it an ID of text area. Let's give it a class of form control. Okay, we're also going to give it a placeholder of, we'll say, enter message. All right, let's take a look at that. Good. Now I want the card to be bigger, so what I'm going to do is just put in a script tag up here. Not a script tag, I'm sorry, a style tag. All right, and we're just going to say the ID of messages. Oops. Messages. Let's set the height to 300 pixels. Okay, so there's our interface. Now we need to move on to the client-side JavaScript. So we're going to go down right above the body tag. First thing we're going to want to do is include socket.io. We need that library to work with. So let's say source equals. And let's go ahead and just do a quick search for socket.io CDN. And let's grab this first one here. Put that right in there. And then we'll create our script tags. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to put everything inside of a function. So let's put some parentheses, and in here we're going to say function, and everything we do will go in here. Now in order for this to run, we need to put another set of parentheses right here at the bottom. Okay, and then what we're going to do is I'm going to write a custom function called element to select all of the things we need to select. So let's create a variable called element. I'm going to set that equal to a function. Okay, and that function is going to take in an ID, and then we're just going to return document.getElement by ID and pass in the ID. This way we don't have to keep reusing getElement by ID. Okay, you don't have to do this, it's just a kind of a shortcut, I guess. So let's say get elements. So first thing we'll get is the status. So let's create a variable called status. Now instead of doing document.getElement by ID and all that, we can just say element, and we can pass in status. All right, let me just make sure we have that. It's a class. We need to change that to an ID. Okay. So that gets the status element. Now let's get, I'm just going to paste in a few more of these. So we need status, we need messages. Okay, so we want to get the element with the ID of messages, which is, let's make sure we have it, this right here. Okay, which is this. This is where all the messages will be output from the server. We also want the text area. Okay, remember I gave it an ID of text area. We want the username, which has an ID of username. Make sure that that's there. Yep. And then we also want the clear button. I think that had an ID of clear. Yep. All right, so that gets all the elements. Now we want to deal with the status. So let's say set default status, because we want to be able to get statuses from the server. For instance, if we look at right here, we're sending the status to the client. It's an object with message, message sent, and then a clear value. Initially, we want the status to be blank. Okay, so let's set, we'll say status default, and we're going to set it to status element, and then text content. Okay, so we're just saying whatever is in here is the status, okay, which by default is nothing. And then we're going to create a function called setStatus. So let's set that to a function. Okay, and that's going to get passed in a value. We'll just call it S. And then let's say setStatus. So we want to set the status to whatever's passed in, or the status text content to whatever's passed in, S. Okay, so for instance, when this is called from the server, the status will get turned to this object. And then what we want to do is a couple seconds later, we want to clear that status out. Okay, because we want it, for instance, to say message sent, but we want that to clear out. So what we'll do is we'll say if the S value is not equal to the status default, if it's not equal to the status default, then we want to just clear it out 4 seconds later. So we'll create a variable called delay, and we'll set that to set timeout. Oops. Set timeout, and set timeout is going to take in a function, and we're just going to set it back to default. So we'll say set status, okay, which is the function we created right here. Okay, we're actually in it. So set status, and we want to set it to status default. And we want that to happen 4 seconds later. So this set timeout function right here takes a parameter of milliseconds. So we're going to say 4,000. All right, so hopefully this makes sense. I know it's a little confusing. Basically, if we get a status sent from the server, 4 seconds later, we want to basically wipe it out and go back to the default. All right, so that is all of our variables and functions and stuff. Now we're going to work with socket.io, okay, with the library. So let's go under, let's see, we're going to go right here, and let's say connect to server, or we'll say connect to socket.io. So we're going to create a variable here called socket. We're going to set it to io.connect. Now we can access this IO object because we brought in socket.io up here. Okay, so if you make sure that you brought that in, or it won't work. Now in here, we need the address of our server, which is going to be on our local host, so 127.0.0.1, and remember it's port 4000. If we look at server.js, we used port 4000 right here, so that's what we need to connect to. All right, now once we do that, let's go ahead and check for connection. So we'll say if socket is not equal to undefined, then that means everything's good. So let's just do a console.log, and we'll say connected to, we'll just say connected to socket. Now we're going to need to run our server. So let's go to server.js, and let's open up our terminal. Let's run npm start. Okay, and then over here, let's reload our index file and open up our console here, and we get connected to socket. All right, so far so good. Hopefully I haven't lost you guys yet. I'm just going to make that smaller. I'm going to leave the server running. And then, actually, no, I'm not. Actually, yeah, I am. So what we want to do is, if everything is good and we're actually connected, we want to basically get the output. We want to get the chats. And if we look at our server, we're looking at output, which is right here. Okay, so from our server, we're emitting the output, and it's the result from this query. Okay, so that's what we want to fetch onto. Okay, so to do that, we're going to say socket.on, and we want to say .on output. So that's going to allow us to hook into this emit right here called output. Okay, we could have just as well called this something else if we wanted to, and then put it here, but we called it output. Now we need to have a function here, and we can actually get the data that's being sent from the server. So the response right here, that's being sent as this data. So what we'll do, just for shits and giggles, let's just console log the data. Okay, so we'll reload, and we get just an empty array, okay, because there is actually no chats in the collection. Now, just as kind of a side thing here, let's go ahead and open up our Mongo shell. So you guys don't have to do this. I just want to just show you that you can do this. So I'm going to go to my MongoDB bin directory, and I'm going to just open up a command line there. Bring this down, and I'm just going to say Mongo. You know what? For some reason, git bash doesn't work with that, so I'm going to just go to my standard Windows command line. I can fix it, but I'm not going to go through it right now. So I'm just going to navigate to MongoDB /bin Mongo. All right, so now we're in the Mongo shell. Let's clear this out, and let's say show DBs. Okay, so you see we have the Mongo chat database there, and that was created because we created it right here. Okay, so just by running connect into Mongo chat, that created it. So let's go ahead and insert a chat. So we'll say use Mongo chat, and then we'll say db dot and then the collection, which is going to be chats dot insert. Okay, and then each chat is going to have, what is it, a name? We'll say name Brad, and let's say message hello. All right, so that inserted a chat. Let's go back over here and reload, and now if you look down here, there it is, name Brad, message hello. So that's pretty damn cool. I just wanted to show you guys that. But of course, you don't have to follow along and do all that. But let's go ahead and add one more. We'll just say hello there, and we'll change the name to, let's say, Mike. All right, so now if I reload over here, we look in the console, we now have two objects. So let's go ahead and exit the Mongo shell, and then we're going to take the response that's being sent from our server and put it into the the messages window here. So let's go back down. Let's go back to index.html. Well, we'll just comment out the console log just in case you want to use that again. And then we're going to just check to make sure that there is some chats. So if data.length, and then we just want to do a loop here. Okay, so we're going to loop through. We're going to say for var, let's call it x, and then we'll say as long as x is less than data.length, then we want to x plus plus. We want to increment by 1. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to actually build out, we're going to use vanilla JavaScript to build out the div, or the div to display the name and the chat and the message. So let's put a comment here. We'll say build out message div. So for that, we're going to say var message, and we're going to set it to document dot create element. We're going to say create element, and we want to create a div. Okay. And if you guys are new to JavaScript, this is a really good thing to learn, to actually create DOM elements from within JavaScript. So we created a div. Now what we want to do is we want to set an attribute. So we're going to take that message variable, which is our new div, and we're going to say set attribute. And I'm going to give it an attribute, which is going to be a class. Okay, it's going to be a class, and we're going to call it chat message. Chat-message. All right. Now what we want to do is add the content. So we're going to say message dot text content, and we're going to set it to data, and we want the current iteration, so the current message, so we need to put in our X here, and then the name. All right, and then let's go ahead and just concatenate a colon. We'll put a colon here and then a space, and then over here we want the message, so data current iteration message. Okay, and then let's go under that and let's say messages dot append child, and in here we're going to just pass in message. Okay, and then we have one more line here, which is going to be messages dot insert before message, and then we want messages dot first child. Okay, and that'll take care of inserting the message. So let's go ahead and save that, reload, and this should actually be var x equals 0. There we go. All right, so you can see that what happened was it fetched the output, and we're looping through the output, and for each message or each chat we're building out a div. We're building out this div here, and if we look at through the selector here, you'll see it's a div with the class of chat message. We applied that chat message class with this set attribute. All right, and then we want it to insert before the message that's already there, so we want the most recent chat to be on top. Okay, so that takes care of the output. Now let's take care of getting the status from the server. Okay, so we're gonna go let's see, let me actually just put a comment right here. Let's say handle output. Okay, that ends right there, and then let's do get status from server. So again, if we look at our server.js, we have where is it? Right here, emit status. So that's what we're going to hook into here. So to do that, we're going to say socket.on status. All right, so socket.on status and function, and then we want to grab the data, which is basically just the status, and let's say get message status. So remember, we have that function we created called set status. I can't type. So that would be this right here, set status. And let's see, we're going to pass in here set status, and we're going to say type of data is equal to an object. So this should be an object. Okay, and then we're going to use a shorthand ternary operator. I can never say that right. And we're going to say data.message, if there is one, else data. All right. And then what we'll do under the set status is we're going to check to see if it should clear. So we'll say if status is clear, clear text. So we'll just do a simple if statement here, and we'll say if data.clear, then we want to just set the text area dot value equal to nothing. All right, now this data clear, if we look at server.js, when we're sending our status right here, so this would actually be after the input, which we haven't done yet, but it will send clear true. If that's true, then we just want to clear the text area value here. Okay, but I probably should have did this after we handle the input, but whatever, that's fine. So let's now handle the input. All right, now I'm going to go right under the status thing that we just did here, and let's say handle input. So basically we want an event for when we start to type in the message and we hit enter. All right, so what we'll do is we'll say text area. Okay, because remember we added text area as one of the elements here. So we're going to say text area. We're going to put an event listener onto that. And we want to listen for key down. Okay, so it's when we start typing. And then we're going to run a function. And that's going to take in an event parameter. And then basically what we want to do is we need to, we only want this to happen. We only want to submit to our server when we hit the enter key. Okay, not just any key. So we're going to do a test here. We're going to say if, let's say if event dot which dot, what is it? Yeah, if event dot which equals, triple equals 13. Now the reason I'm using 13 is because if we say key code 13 in JavaScript, this is a Stack Overflow question. Key code 13 is for which key, and the answer is it's return or enter. Okay, so when the user hits return or enter, we want this to happen. Now I'm going to put an extra condition in here, and we're going to say, yeah, and event dot shift key, which is another property we can access, is equal to false, meaning that if they hit enter and they're not holding shift while they hit enter, okay, then we want to proceed. And what we want to do is we want to emit to the server input. And if we look at our server.js, that would be right here. Okay, so we're hooking into this input, and we need to pass in our data, which is going to be the name and the message. So let's go ahead and do that. So we'll say socket.emit. We want to emit to the input, and we want to pass in an object. This is going to be our data, which will be the name. We can get that from username.value. And then also the message, which will be, what is it, text area. Text area.value. All right, so we're emitting to input and we're sending our data. And then the last thing we're going to do is just prevent the default behavior. Event.prevent default and save. All right, so let's reload this. We'll open up our console, make sure there's no shit going on. And let's go ahead and put in a name. We'll say Tom, and we'll just say hi. There we go. And we get our status right here. Message sent should disappear in 4 seconds. And that's what is going on right here. Okay, the status changed, it displayed, and after 4 seconds we set it back to the default. So that way message sent doesn't just sit there. All right, I hope that I'm explaining this clearly to you guys. It's kind of difficult. You know, it is kind of difficult. This definitely isn't something for, you know, absolute JavaScript beginners. All right, so the last thing we want to handle is clearing. Okay, we want to be able to clear all of our chats. So let's go under the event listener, and let's say handle chat clear. All right, so remember we have our clear button. I think it's clear BTN. Let me just make sure. Yep, clear BTN. We're going to add an event listener to that. Okay, add event listener. We're going to listen for a click. When it's clicked, it'll run a function. Okay, and let's see. All we want to do is emit to the clear event on our server, which is right here. And what that's going to do is it's going to remove all of our chats. So let's go ahead and say socket.emit, and we want to emit to clear. And that's it. That should clear it. Now we also want to let's see, we want to make sure the text clears from here as well. So let's say clear message, and we'll say socket.emit, socket.on cleared, because if we look at our server, we have right here, it's emitting cleared. All right, so socket emit cleared, and then function, and we just want to make sure that the messages text content is going to be equal to nothing. All right. So let's reload and let's hit clear and everything goes away. Cool. Try it one more time. We'll say Harry. Hello there. Okay, let's copy the link here. Let's open up another tab. And let's say John. You can see Harry's messages there. We'll say, how the hell are you, Harry? There we go. How the hell are you, Harry? If we go over here, you can see it's displayed here as well. So we now have a very simple chat application. On the surface, it is very, very simple, but you can see it is, I mean, I wouldn't say complicated. Hopefully, I mean, if I explained it right, it's not that complicated. If you guys get stuck on anything, you know, leave a message or a comment, you know, message, comment, whatever, and I'll try to help you out. But hopefully it's clear. I just want to show you guys, you know, this is one of my really popular videos, build an HTML5 website with a responsive layout. And I thought this was funny. I just got a comment that says, could you please more clear videos on web design and development? And I said, could you please more clear when asking a question? Like, I don't know. I think I explain things pretty well, especially simple things like, you know, an HTML5 website and div tags. So that, I mean, that's just part of being a YouTuber, is you got to deal with people like that, you know. They want you to be clear, but they're even less clear in their questions. So, you know, 95%, 96, 7% of you guys are awesome, but, you know, you do have to deal with freaking morons occasionally. So thanks for watching, guys. Please subscribe if you liked it, and I will see you in the next video. So if you guys really like my videos and you learn a lot from them, and maybe you have a couple extra dollars to spare, check out my Patreon page. I'm working on creating special content for patrons. You also get special deals on future courses, and there's even an email support tier for all YouTube videos and projects. To learn more, visit patreon.com/TraversyMedia.